right, y'all. I told you I might come back. I don't know how long I'll be up here. I'm gonna stay until my baby girl get out of her yeah. I just picked up my daughter. So alright, let's do part 2 real quick. So, I hope y'all put y'all notifications on. So I'm gonna be taking clips of this and I'm gonna put the whole thing on YouTube. So don't worry about if you hear, if you miss it. I usually come only Tuesdays at 2. But I was like, let me just come back real quick since we was having such a good conversation. And I know I had to run out real quick. But I'm back, y'all. So let's do this real quick. I don't know how long I got before I'm summoned by baby girl. Because, you know, motherhood come first, y'all. And then this TikTok stuff, this social media stuff, this ain't real. Real life is real life. So, okay, let's get back started. My little... I had a cute little ring on. I don't know what it is. Anyway, so we left off talking about Trump and Joe Rogan's podcast. So I wrapped that up. If you guys were here for that for the first half of the live, I appreciate that. But now it's time for Kamala's. Her turn. So if you don't like Kamala, go ahead on, because I already did Trump. I did him. I was fair, pretty unbiased, because I'm going to give my opinions where my opinions is due. And same thing gonna go for Kamala. I'm pretty unbiased, but you know, I have my concerns about her as well. So if you guys are sensitive, please don't start none. I come with love, I promise. Okay, so let's get started. So Kamala, like I told you guys on the last live, she is gonna be on her blitz this week. She is currently in DC tonight. Tim Walz is gonna be in Georgia. I told you JD Vance will be in Michigan. Trump's going to be on Hannity, and she had her endorsements from Beyonce and Eminem, whereas Donald Trump got his from The Undertaker, Hulk Hogan, and Melania, Melania was the really big one because she's like kind of upset with him because of the pro-life, pro-choice thing. So she said she wasn't going to campaign because he knows her views. So we got that. And then like I said, Kamala went to Club Shay Shay, and this was essentially what they talked about. So she talked about the ideas of like price gouging. She talked about hurricanes, and she didn't say specifically about like cloud seeding, but she insinuated that like a lot of the hurricanes that are going on are like kind of to destroy so that companies can rebuild, and essentially how that's bad policy. And when the companies do come in and rebuild, because you got to remember, they can't get these people out of their homes because they've been in these properties and these lands for so many years. And so the easiest way, they used to buy them out. The easiest way now is to do this thing called cloud seeding, where they create these torrential storms, and they destroy communities. And then what happens is you have the big companies like the Redfin, and I don't want to give names because they kick me off of here, but y'all know the big companies, the big conglomerate of real estate. They end up buying those hurricane fields that were destroyed. And remember, a lot of the hurricanes hit centralized places that are popular for businesses. So they will now destroy those towns, rebuild up, and they'll buy whole entire communities, displace the people who were previously there, and then they will price gouge. And so what Kamala says is, if they are going to rebuild, she's not gonna feed into the price gouging. My question for her, and that's the thing with Kamala, like Trump, he asks the question and answers his own question. So you really don't have to question him. It's in layman terms. Sometimes with her, she presents a beautiful policy or solution to something that you're like, okay, girl, you wanted something, but she can't figure out how she's going to do it. So it's extreme. You read the book Utopia? It's extremely idealistic. And it's like, yes, we would love this to be the world, Kamala, but is it the real world? So that's going to be her biggest struggle. So she talked about the price gouging. So for me, my question to her would be, okay, well, if these companies are price gouging and are creating these new big facilities, these big company homes, how are you going to stop them from price gouging? Like, she didn't have an answer to that. Sounds like what I think I understand, and this is why, and I did the same thing with Trump, so I'm not being biased. I said what I think he believes, and I'm going to try to translate and summarize what I think she's trying to say. as well. I think she's trying to say before they build, the federal government, if they own any of the land that was destroyed, they're going to gouge first. And then they're going to make those properties either low income homes for middle class communities, so that the full scope of the land is not taken by, you know, the bad people. So that's what it sounds like she's trying to say. But it's like, how are you going to make them do that? Because if you price gouge them for the land, same thing with the Trump and the tariffs. If you price gouge them for the land, they're going to price gouge you for the rent. Unless you penalize them. And then if you penalize them, then they're going to go to a state that is not going to penalize them. So it's kind of like tricky. And then how are the people going to rebuild? Because they're going to say, we're not going to invest any money in this community. Like, for example, I always go back in the day when Zuckerberg gave that $1 million to Jersey, because I'm from Jersey. Where did that money go? It disappeared. So if you do that, how are you going to make sure that the people get the money and not the corrupt politicians getting the money? Like you see right now in some of the school systems, they're begging that the school system turns to charter, because charter is funded by millionaires and billionaires, and they want the money, but they don't have the money from the state because the federal government is bankrupt almost. So they're not getting any programs for music and things like that. But if they were a charter school, they get the funding, which is kind of sad, because it's like, you, in order to be a good teacher that wants to like help the local community, you have to get into a charter school. And maybe you don't like the fundamental policies that the charter school has. Maybe you don't have as much freedom to teach free thinking things as you would in public school. So as a teacher, you're now forced to do those lessons that the charter school. Thank you, Haley, for all the likes. I really appreciate it, y'all. Okay, so let's move on. She then talked about the homeowners first program. So this is her answer to price gouging. She says she's going to give $25,000 to first-time homeowners, and if the corporations jack up the rent, she's going to fine them, essentially. And look, even me telling it is shaky, whereas like, because I understand what she's saying, but the picture is not that clear. Okay, and then she talked about her start new businesses. She said $50K is what she wants to give to each person who wants to start their business, small business owners. 1 second, I'll be right back, guys. Oh no, I don't want to end it. I want to just pause it. So my bad, I had to go mommy time and stuff. So that's why I always do this before. I do Tuesdays at 2 before I gotta be here, because it's just easier that way. Sometimes when she's not a Tyler anymore, but almost a Tyler, when they come around, all eyes is on them, baby. They be like, look at this new shiny thing. So where were we? So she said she's gonna give, we're talking about Kamala, $50K to start a new businesses, which again, that same question, because again, I have a degree in political science. I worked in consulting, so I know about the whole donation, pay to play, and the cap. And when I see stuff like this, when they say we're gonna give $50K to start new businesses, they're not giving it to you or me. They're giving it to a charity that functions as kind of a streamline to the money. So you would, as a regular person, you would go to your local One Stop, if you guys have that in your city, but it's just like a career center. And then you would basically say, or you would go to your small business association and say, look, this is the proposal, this is the business. That facility, that charity, right, that entity would then fund they would give you the $50K. But that's not how that works usually. What tends to happen is they have these select people in their mind, gatekeepers, that they're going to give the $50K to build a women's shelter, or to build, a black-owned cafe, or a WeWork space. You get what I'm saying? And then through that, they would funnel their money back to themselves. So it's really hard for the regular person to actually get that $50K. So unless she has checks and balances in place in order that the money get to the people and not stay with the politicians, that is another thing that could really easily flop, like really quick. So she has to flesh out that $50K plan. Yes, give it to the SBA, but how will the SBA distribute it to me, to you, like to us. Like, we need the money, and we need to know that you're getting. And is it $50K for each business owner in America, or is it just $50K period? Because that's all I hear, $50K to start a business. Is that each of us get $50K? Is that the state gets $50K each? Like, she has to flesh that out a little bit more, but she hasn't had time. So again, and no, Trump, the one that said it, concepts of a plan he has, she also has just concepts of a plan. So but she then talked about increasing access over time. Again, she said because she feels like the lower income people, middle class people, they have the education, but they don't have the access to know where to go to get these things, right? So they might be a college graduated person from a first generation like herself, but they don't know where to get the resources. Like, she gave an example of a time when she had to do her 1040s for her taxes and for the first time, and she had no idea how, and nobody really could explain it to her. Even the tax people were a little confused with it. So I think, and we've all kind of related to that. So she wants a place where you can get the knowledge and it's streamlined and easy in order for us all to get access on how to save money, create businesses, and really create personal generational wealth. That's what she talks about a lot, like individuals creating that wealth for ourselves. There was she didn't talk about this, but she alluded to the Apprentice movie with Donald Trump. Like, she talked about like how this guy wants to be famous, how he's not on TV, and it made me think about the movie The Apprentice. I know that Donald Trump hates that movie right now. There's some bad press about it. Apparently it's about him being groomed in the industry by this big rig business guy who taught Donald Trump everything he knows. And I didn't watch the movie, but I watched the trailer on it, and it basically, the guy is like treating him. You guys watched the Elvis movie? Remember, what's the name, the captain or something? And he was basically calling Elvis the snowman, or calling himself, it's giving that same kind of vibe. Like, Donald Trump is the figurehead, the talent, and whoever this guy was, I can't remember his name, that is the powerhouse, that is the figurehead, and that's what the movie The Apprentice was essentially about. And she kind of alluded to that, saying like, I'm not trying to do a TV show, I'm a real person. Whereas on Donald Trump interview, he talked about the difficulties of being a celebrity to the president pipeline. So that was the difference there. In her interview, she also mentioned that she's going to that Donald Trump, she talks a lot about Donald Trump, where Donald Trump don't really talk about her too much. He more so talks about his first term because he already experienced it, but she hasn't experienced it. But she talks about her record just a little bit in terms of what she's done as AG and DA and senator, but she doesn't talk about like what she's done necessarily as vice president, because I think the bulk of her time as vice president has been in Afghanistan and Iran and all that, and we see that didn't go too well. So she doesn't want to talk about that record because it's not really a positive record. So she talked about Donald Trump again. She mentioned that he wants to obliterate Social Security, and she said so her plan is putting the resources into Social Security and expanding it. She said right now, if your spouse passes away today and you are on Social Security, you and another elder, then you will lose 50% of your Social Security, because once your spouse dies, it completely cuts your Social Security in half, which I thought was really sad. Like, if that's your husband, why wouldn't you keep his Social Security? And she basically saying that's common sense. Like, if your husband die and y'all both older, you should keep his Social Security. And I really agree with that, and I think that's fair. So if she's able to pull that out of her bag, kudos, because that's a biggie. Because the senior community and ageism and everything is like a big thing right now. And so she could get a lot of votes if she keeps talking about that part. But she doesn't, like, that's pretty fleshed out, pretty straightforward. But she hasn't really talked about that a lot. I don't know if she just came up with that, but that was a good one. Yeah, and then she talks about no increases in taxes less than $400K for the middle class. So if you are $400K and below, no taxes for you. So she's only taxing the really, really, really rich. And I told you Donald Trump's response to that is, if you tax the rich, they're going to just move overseas. But my response to that is, okay, if you don't tax the rich and they go overseas, they still will be tariffed according to Trump. So it's the same plan. Because Trump's saying, if you are American and you go overseas, we're going to tax you. She's saying, if you are over here and you don't support the local community, we're going to tax you. Either way, the rich is getting taxed. They're either going to tax us, then y'all going to increase the prices, or we're going to tax them here at home. like, it doesn't matter unless they're going to just completely stop selling to American market when their major base, American brands, major base is American people. So I doubt that they would move overseas. So I don't think that Trump really thought that through. I think the people would still stay here. They would just end up dealing with the increase in taxes. And if they, because a lot of companies like in China and stuff, they don't buy American stuff. They feel like it's not even that high quality. So they're not buying our stuff. So in order for him to say that the rich are going to go overseas, first what would have to happen is he would have to market overseas and have to convince the people overseas to buy American cars, which they really, or anything American, they really don't. A lot of them don't even allow our foods like to be sold over there overseas. So why would they allow us to just uproot, move our businesses over there and expect us to have a buyer's market? It's not as easy as Trump thinks it is, or he would have already done it. But she's tried to do, I've seen a few of his entities across the world that have not been successful. Trump, well, he slaps his name on stuff. She talked about young parents, that they're going to have a $6,000 child credit for, and I don't know what she mean by young parents. Does she mean people 40 and under? Does she mean, I don't understand that. She said young parents. Is that high schoolers? What is that? So she has to flesh that out again. She said she says Donald Trump is going to rid the $35 cap on insulin. What she should say, instead of saying Donald Trump's going to do this, she should say I'm going to do this. She should say I'm going to maintain the $35 cap on insulin, instead of saying Donald Trump will rid it. She should also say, instead of saying Donald Trump's going to obliterate Social Security, she should say I'm going to reinvigorate Social Security and I'm going to maintain it, because she's talking about what he's not going to do instead of talking about what she's going to do. So yeah, she continues to talk about Donald Trump being a TV personality, that he's not a good businessman, you know, her spiel, because they both have their spills, that he filed for bankruptcy 6 times. She said he beats people down instead of lifting people up. And then I thought a good question that Shannon Sharp asked her was about her career of service. And I thought it was a good point that I really wish she would have talked a lot more about, because she didn't hone it in the way I wanted her to. So she said she's always been a person of service, a person of wanting to help people. He said you went from AG to DA to senator to VP. And she said, yes, and I've been responsible for billions of dollars for minority groups, including Latinos and Black Americans. And she said over her time, if you actually go in, and I haven't done this because I'll probably do this next week with you guys. She said, if you actually go over it, she said, you'll see all the billions of dollars I put into minority funded programs to protect minorities. She's talked about the Pacific Islanders and what she's done for them. Again, this could be all cap, but this is what she said in the interview. So you guys let me know if you know one thing besides that Biden ban that she done for Pacific Islanders, and let me know what she's done for the Black communities, and what she said she was responsible for billions and billions of dollars for minorities during her time as VP and district attorney. So let me know, and if not, I'll let you guys know next week if I find anything. She said that she will make capital to Black communities accessible. She talked about her plan for local banks. I forgot to tell you guys this part, which this I kind of could see it. So let me break it down. So she said she wants to have these local banks. So she'll have like 3 different banks throughout the community, and that's where the billionaires will house some of their charitable monies, right? And she said those local banks will then fund the SBAs that I talked about earlier. Excuse me. And then she said based on that, it will create a tax credit for the rich. And then the rich will be happy because they'll be fed based on their tax credit, because it won't be that much. And then the communities will be fed because they'll be getting this money from the Small Business Association that will be directly funded through the banks, right? So essentially the rich give to the middleman, the banks give to us, the poor. And so what, again, the problem with that is have to make sure it gets to us and not get stuck with the politicians in the middle, which Donald Trump talked about in his Joe Rogan thing. He said the problem with them, they're good people, But because they don't make a lot of money, they try to find money where they can't find money, and that's what leads to corruption. So that's the biggest thing with the Democratic Party. How do we stop the corruption? And the Republicans, they don't hide their corruption. They tell it like it is. And I think that's why people like, oh, they'll tell you where their money's going. They'll tell you, like, there was this, I just saw a video on it before I hopped on here. And it was talking about how like 4 or 5 different billionaires, how they tried to buy different politicians and create more seats in the House for themselves. And that's basically how politicians are often funded. And when you aren't making a lot of money, you tend to get funded that way. Hey, Chosen, how you doing, girl? But because at the end of the day, Kamala right now, she's in the lead when it comes to funding. Trump is trying to say she's corrupt. But I feel like, isn't it the same thing as Elon out here giving $1 million for a vote? So they both do unfair practices, if you ask me. Okay, so then the last thing she talked about was, just her payroll. She said she wants to create she wants to create plans where small businesses know how to do paperwork like payroll and taxes. She said we as a people, we lack information, but the billionaires, they have the information and they have the money. She said we can have something to try to break these generational curses. She talked about doctors in Georgia and Texas and how they are going to jail for life in prison for doing something as simple as an abortion. Still wrong. Still wrong. I don't like that. It's just something in the milk ain't clean for me about that. I just don't like it. Because if you gave me $1 million, I'm gonna be more, swayed to vote your way. Dark MAGA. What I say? Right here. I'm dark MAGA. I'm gonna be more inclined to vote that way because you just gave me $1 million, buddy. Like, I'm gonna be scared that you're gonna be able to see my ballot. You don't think he gonna look at that person's ballot and see how they voted? Anyway, I'm too much of a scaredy cat to take $1 million from a person and not vote for their candidate. That's just me. Okay, so prison for life for doctors. And I did love when they did the debate, or not the debate, when they had the rally, that they had the doctor standing from Georgia who kind of introduced her. I thought that was beautiful. But it was similar to what Trump had the Border Patrol police behind him. They both got their kind of constituents. So we'll see what happens. She mentioned that Trump voters have forgiven him for everything. And she personally feels like he only wants like nationalists, anti-Latinos, anti-colorists. He only wants Latinos who are not offended by his extreme rhetoric. And I kind of agree with that too. I feel like that kind of catch-all yesterday that I posted on my page about the Latinos, I feel like that was a test of loyalty, which is why I followed up with that loyalty video that he mentioned. He wants absurd loyalty. And I think that was the test yesterday. So the Latinos, he was able to see, kind of get a sense of like who was watching what videos, what the comments were saying. It was literally just a test. It was a social experiment to see how Latinos are reacting to his nationalism, because the ones that he can convert to white, he will, and the ones that are, my mom always say, black folk, we gotta pick a side. And she says sometimes when you insert, because she grew up in Florida, you either gotta be a black person that's going to rock with somebody if they see a white person smack. My mom was the first generation to be integrated into school. So sometimes you will see a white boy just smack a black kid out the head. And at that point, as a black person, you got to decide, you're going to be like, don't do that. Or if you're going to be like, I didn't see nothing. So my mom always said, black person got to decide, And, my mom decided, and we's black. So I'm really blackity black when it comes to that kind of stuff. So for me, if I was a Latino, I personally would be offended by the joke. But if you are one of the people who are just going to look away for the benefit of your own people, then you probably are not offended by the joke. And you probably find it funny. But me, the kind of person I am, I did not find the joke funny. It was tasteless. So so Trump, I feel like that kind of took away some of his respect from the Latin community. For me personally, that's what I see when I'm reading the reviews. People are really upset about it. I think it hindered him a little bit, and I don't know why. Why? That's why when he said it, I said this earlier on my live, the first one, because the first half of the live I talked about Trump, the second half of the live Kamala. So the first half of I said the person who did that to him is the enemy within. Who would get that guy to say that a week before election? That's the enemy within. Whoever hired him, that's who he needs to fire, for real. So yes, and then now Mark Anthony and J Lo, and you know how it is. You know how it is. Jenny from the block popped out, and she and Mark Anthony and what's the other name? Avita Loca. Him. He also, Ricky Martin came out, and they basically put a video up that Trump said Mexicans are DDs in East, and I don't even want to say the words, like basically pharmaceutical salesmen and therapist. Okay, so he said that in 2016, and then he said that's no different than the floating garbage comment in 2020 that Donald Trump said about Mexicans, and then for this Tony Hinchcliffe guy to come and say this tonight in 2024. So he has a record of saying things about Mexicans, about Puerto Ricans now, and about Venezuelans. So with that, I just think it was bad timing. Like, what were they thinking? I just want to, that's crazy. So, and he often gives very graphic descriptions of like the incoming Latin community, and they're really kind of crude and rude. So that's another thing that I think is hindering Donald Trump. And obviously Kamala brought kind of all this kind of stuff up in her conversation with Shannon Sharp. She just also talked about the whole black jobs, and she added brown people. She said, let's do our job, black and brown, you know what I'm saying, like, and get the vote out. And again, I said J Lo, but also Bad Bunny. He came out and said he was voting. And she also talked about Donald Trump is going to have something called private security firm, which allows private third-party companies who are not the FBI to come in and review confidential papers. And essentially, with the flick of a wand, Donald Trump will have complete control over who gets clearance to our security. Because right now it's not like that. It's kind of separated. You have the FBI, the CIA, intelligence, and then they brief the president on some of the intel that's going on. And based on that information, that's what the information that the president gets at the time. So he doesn't get all the classified information. He can request classified information from the FBI, but he can't just go and grab what he wants when he wants and how he wants it, because they have like checks and balances in place for that. Like, he can and he can't. There's a process to do it. So he wants to eliminate that process, and he wants to be able to show classified documents to who he wants, when he wants, how he wants. So that's something she talked about. And he also talked about Elon a lot. And I think Elon's in his ear, and because from what it sounded like in the Joe Rogan interview, to just kind of jump on what Kamala's talking about in regards to this, I think he feels like this is great technology. I can take this classified information, I can know it, maybe I can share it with somebody like Elon who's really smart and I trust, and I can give him this information, and then we can kind of come up with a great scheme for America. But the problem with that is we don't know what Elon's intention is, because he's not the president. But the president feel like, if I trust him, y'all should trust him. And if you rocking with that, you're aligned with Trump. I don't know how I feel about it, because it's kind of happening. It's like, to me, I like how America has it, where the president can look at the classified information, but it's with the military, and it's with the CIA, and it's with the FBI, and it's in-house. So unless he makes Elon like a military official, or makes him like a general or something, I don't think Elon should have privy to that information. But then it's like, is there a check? Is there like a order that makes you a general? Is there something in place? Or can Donald Trump say, you're a general because I said you're a general? I don't know how all that works. So if there's no checks and balances, I feel like it's going to be really dangerous for him to have access to everything of our whole history and then share it with whoever he wants. I don't know. That just don't seem right to me. And also she talked about, this is kind of like her wrapping up the interview with Shannon Sharp. She talked about Project 2025, his agenda to ensure systematic racism and oppression. She talks about when he says make America great again, he's talking specifically about Jim Crow era. She said, let's make that very clear. You know how she likes to say, just make that very clear. So that's what she said, let's make that clear. I know his type. So she said specifically, he's not talking about American 1800s to 19. He's talking about Jim Crow. And she said, that's a real documented time with the pit bulls and the water hose. And she said, that's the America he's talking about. And he said, you might not remember it, but she remembers it, because just like my mother was the first generation to be integrated into schools from segregated schools, so was Kamala. She was like the second class ever to be integrated into black class, to be integrated into a white school. So she knows what that feels like, and she knows the separation that it creates in America, and she's trying to prevent it from going back to that. That's why she said, we not going back. She lived it. She said, I ain't going back there. So I don't want to go back there either. You know, it's sad. It doesn't sound that pleasant for people who look like me, but you know, don't send me back. Okay, so the next thing was, this is just, so now we're done with Kamala's interview, which to me, I summed up Trump's, and I said he was a little bit of a narcissist in it. So I'll sum up hers. She was a little bit of a bore, a little bit of a snooze. It was a little boring, because I watched Trump for 3 hours. And yeah, he was a narcissist. And yeah, he's me first. Y'all think he's America first? No, he's me first. Because he said, I'm that guy. I was even watching interviews from 94. And he been like this. He not new to this. He true to it. He said, I'm that guy. I built over. I started this company. I built myself. I'm a self-made man. This is from 94. This I'm talking about the Trump Towers. Now the rhetoric is not, I'm the man. It's, we built America. We did it first. I'm the greatest president. Same rhetoric. Just 94 versus 2024. Same guy. So you can say he's consistent, but he is a narcissist. But neither here nor there. And she is a bore. So that's what I got from the Shannon Sharp interview. It was boring, y'all. But she's smart. And this is what brings me to, which is why I hopped on tonight. Because I said, I got so much to talk about with y'all that I could not wait until next week or tomorrow. Because I don't think it's fair, because some of y'all going to vote soon, right? So I said to myself, I got to get through all these notes tonight, so that you have the information, so that tomorrow when you go vote, or next week, you guys will have this without me feeling like I have to rush and hurry up and tell you guys again. And okay, so the next thing, this leads me into Fareed. If you guys know Fareed, he is like kind of as neutral as they come these days ish, but he still can kind of lean more left, but he kind of tries to be in the middle. And I watched the episode of him talking about this thing called political realignment. And he talked about that's where the future is. And I told you guys before that we are at the precipice of change in history. Every 250 years, there's a big shift in kingdoms. It happened with the Roman Empire, happened with the Egyptian Empire, and now it's going to happen with the American Empire, right? So I'm sorry. And so he called it political realignment. He put into words what I've been trying to explain to you guys for a couple of weeks now, right? He said, this is the bottom line. There's going to be no more prominent divide between race. The divide now will be between blue collar and professionals. So essentially education versus hard work, right? So it says it's not economic, but social class defined by college education. He says the big groups now will be gender, geography, religion, and education. Those will be the big political divides, okay? And this is what we're going to have to deal with no matter who wins. The shift is coming. We're at 248 years. Like I told you guys, every 250 years, there is a shift in huge kingdoms. And it's our turn. Okay? So education is going to be a huge sector. So education is going to be urban, secular, and women left. So that's going to be one category. Education, urban, secular, women left. The next category is going to be uneducated or less educated, rural, religious, male, leaning right. And then within the black and white scale, we'll fall within those two. Not based on race anymore, based on our education and based on our secular or urban or religious views, okay? Also, black and Hispanic men will, in the next 5 to 10 years, be more aligned with the Republican Party. So, for example, Hulk Hogan snatching his shirt off at the Republican convention versus Kamala, who will now get more white vote than even Joe Biden as a white male. He will get less votes than Kamala would for the educated white person right now, because white educated people see themselves in Kamala. And, you know, the machismo guy sees themselves in a Donald Trump. It says Democrats, though, they're having a really hard time with this big shift because it's a saying that you can't see the forest past the trees. They can't see the big picture. So because of that, Democrats seem dumbfounded right now because there's a big shift in modern politics. And now, remember how 10 years ago, I would say, the Republicans were just old and dull and didn't get it? It's the Democrats' turn, okay? That's what's happening. So they don't realize that it has nothing to do with race, and they're still leaning heavily on the divide between Latinos and blacks, and they now need to focus more on gathering who's going to vote for them, which is the white, educated, female-leaning audience. So they have to lean into who's going to help them win. But they're not there yet. Bernie Sanders, they said, on the other hand, is more aligned with the educated elites, but he's too far left. They said if Bernie Sanders gets it, he's modern, he's the most modern, progressive Democrat who's most aligned with the current Democrat, I would say, projection. So what our idea of a Democrat is, Bernie Sanders aligns with that the most. The problem is the ones that are on the fence, a little bit more conservative, I would say even like myself, who voted both Dem and Republicans before, those people don't rock with Bernie too much because he's too gone and too far left. And so it says he's too far left on social issues, not really people centric. He's more focused on economic issues. And his social issues that he is like entrenched in deal with the idea of core rights. So that would be things like gender, education, religion, and those things. If you're too far right, for example, if you are coming into the schools and trying to change your 5-year-old's gender, that's going to piss people with those core beliefs off. So that's why people like Bernie are too far left. And the Democrats have to figure out how not to go that far because the shift in the world is leaning more right. People are becoming more conservative because when you broke, you got to be conservative with your money. You ain't got time to be spending it on no surgeries. Let's be honest. Okay, so non-college educated people are the main voters. That's another problem Democrats have. So because they ain't working, they home, and they are going to be the ones that go out in droves. So because of that, they have to tap into that. And non-educated voters are not interested in the Democrats. They are more interested in a Republican because they identify with the layman term. And I wrote a note. I don't know if I wrote it here or where I wrote it at. I'm sure I'll get to it. Yeah, I did. I said, this is my own personal observation. I said, with Kamala, I understand what she's saying. I said, with Trump, he's saying what he's saying. It's just layman terms. So Kamala, I get what she's trying to say as a person who speaks kind of in riddles sometimes. I'm like, I get what she's trying to say. But Trump, I don't gotta get what he's trying to say. He said what he said, and that's the difference. So because of that, non-educated people are aligned with him because it's in layman terms. It's clear. You don't have to pick up a book to get it or understand it. You have to define, like, sometimes the words Kamala uses, again, I'm college educated, so I understand what she's trying to say. But if you didn't go to college, or you like my daddy, or even Fantasia, remember Fantasia couldn't read until she did American Idol. So you have people who are still like that in this day and age, and you haven't using all these big words that people don't understand. You have to relate to the layman's, the regular people. So there's a huge new cultural landscape that will define America for years to come. And the right, they have it right when it comes to the economic parts of America, which is still kind of left reaching, but not all the way. They're leaning more towards the right. So that was Fareed. He did this interview, did this whole documentary on something called political realignment. So if you guys get a chance to go on YouTube, look up Fareed, political realignment. I loved it. It really summed up everything I've been trying to kind of explain to you guys. That's why I created this page. That's why I try to be as unbiased as I can be. I am biased. I have personal biases. I'm a black and I'm a woman. And I explained y'all why it's hard to vote Republican as a black woman who has some sense in her head. Like what Baldwin said, you know, to be an educated person in America is to always be consistently frustrated with America. Because you know it can be great again. You see the beauty of things, but it's really hard to relate to it when it doesn't include you in a lot of it. And you can obviously see we're not included, especially the ones that is garbage in the middle of the ocean. Because come on, like common sense, like just stuff like that. And it never ends for Black America. It never ends. Like no matter how open you are with love you are, even on here, you will see that people will come. I'll just be talking and somebody will be like, and I'm like, why? This is not even that kind of page. We don't do that over here. Do I look like I do that? I don't got time for that. So yeah, you never know when people have like that anger in them, and I think that's the hardest part, because you never know when you're going to encounter it, even when you're coming from a place of love with America. Y'all can say we delusional, there's racism doesn't exist, but I've experienced it, and it is what it is. It is what it is. So next thing, this is a random. Did I finish with Kamala? Yes, I finished with Kamala and Fareed and everything. So the interview, like I said, board fest, but the takeaway is to go look at political realignment, because in the end, Kamala, Trump, none of it's going to matter, because there's going to be a huge new landscape of politics from here to come in 2 more years. 250 years, this is going to flip on its head. Just wait for it. But at least you guys who are here, you guys will be prepared for it. All right, so the next thing is I talked about the endorsements. I wrote a little observation, because at the end I just do my own observation here. So if you guys are new here, every Tuesday at 2 p.m. I come on, I do lives, and I break down the positives, the pros and cons of both Kamala and Trump, and sometimes the VPs. I'll throw a little Waltz, a little Vance, you know, my little sassy babe. I'll throw them in there as well, if I have an opinion on what they're doing. And then we just kind of shoot the shit and just hang out and like discuss politics and have fun with it and try not to take it so serious. We don't get offended over here. We just have a good time. So right now, this is my last little breakdown of my observation. I did the pros and cons of each candidate. Now I'm doing like kind of a pop culture personal observation breakdown. And so what I noticed, death row. Okay, so there's a divide. So if you look like death row, and then I was thinking about like maybe, I don't know, the Rock Nation or something. Like there's a split there. And I think it has something to do with politics, because Death Row supported Trump, and then the Rock Nation supported Kamala, red and blue. If you know, you know. And then I even wrote, it looked like Death Row might have some Elon money, because I was just watching Snoop Dogg got a new video with an artist called October London, and that video looked like money, honey. And I said, when Snoop Dogg get all his money for a video like this? The day after Death Row endorsed Donald Trump. So I look at stuff like that. And then if you go look at Snoop Dogg and Death Row and see the beautiful, glamorous, everything they got going on. Where they getting all that money from? And then see the CEO of Death Row just endorsed Trump. So I look at all that. And then if you look, so basically whoever wins the election, we're gonna see either Jay-Z people come down, or it's gonna be the Snoop Dogg people. We're gonna see a little tiff there. So just watch the music industry too. And this is the pretty part, you know, pretty political. Pretty is we gotta talk about pop culture and the stuff that is on the surface but still has to do with politics as well. So yeah, I said there's a divide between blue and red. It seems the blue supports the red and the red supports the blue. You know, things that make you go, is what I wrote. And then I also wrote Donald Trump, when I watched this interview, and I took a clip off it to just talk about his loyalty, but it was like a 13 minute clip. of him talking about his second marriage to Marla Maples, I think her name was. And he talked about, and I thought it was so interesting, he talked about he loves making stars. He said he sees wives as infrastructures similar to his buildings. Y'all want me to post that video? I might post that. Let me put a star. Because I thought that was deep. I said, that makes so much sense. That's why you see Melania just got that new book. And it's beautiful. It's like a coffee table book. He creates stars. And that's why he loves that. And he couldn't do it so much with Ivana, because she took all his money. That was such an interesting documentary. So just look out for that. That's what he's doing with JD Vance. And look how quick he created JD Vance to be a star. A little star. So this is what he does. He likes to build things up. So I'm a little nervous though. Cause I said, is he gonna just build America up to be a star and then dump us? Cause once he builds you up as a star, he will dump you real bad. That's the end of all of his exes in real bad. Except I don't think Melania played with him like that. So she the one. So, okay, after election, what will you be discussing? Their policies, and also discuss Colin. Okay, I said after election, what I want to do with you guys is we'll be discussing whichever candidate wins. We'll discuss their policies. We're going to do a little book club. We'll also discuss college, because I used to work in higher education, and so I can help you guys with if you guys have college age students and you're trying to get them good financial aid tips, help them with the FAFSA. We'll do things like that. We'll talk about the breakdown of policy towards colleges and how it really affects students today and the job market in the future. Like, the children are the future. So we'll talk about how we can protect our children and make sure that we're on top of their financial aid and things like that. Because for me, it doesn't matter who the president is. You got to educate the children. And then I also wanted to talk about the election boxes. Y'all seen them blowing up? It's already started. It's already started. You know what this means? They're going to be blowing up boxes all over and miscounting things. It's about to be a mess. This is about to be the craziest. This is probably the most serious elections we've had since 2008. 2020, like those are some we've been going through it lately, y'all, but this one is going to be a doozy. And then also I connected that Donald Trump to me when I was watching his interviews over the week, because he didn't just do Joe Rogan, he did a bunch of different interviews that I was watching. Adam, whatever his name is, he is a prosperity pastor. He is a prosperity pastor. You guys know which ones I'm talking about. You're talking about the guy who prophesied that Jesus gonna send you $1 million right now. That is Donald Trump, y'all. And I every time I watched him, I said, oh, look at him prophesizing. I know that's right. Hallelujah. All he was missing was the evangelist dance. But he has the same cadence, the same swag, the same spiel as those prosperity pastors. That's what it's giving. And I finally put my, nail on it. I said, that's what it is. Okay, what else did I write? I said, Melania was on Fox News. She loved her appearance in New York City, she said. She loved the support that she had. She said he didn't even know she was going to show up, Trump. So you know how they get now. So she was like, he was so happy I was there. He didn't even know I was coming. His people didn't know I was coming, because she said she didn't really support the pro-life thing, I guess, and she told him about it, and he changed his stance on it, which she really respected. And so that's what made her come out, because if he didn't change his stance on it, she would not have supported him, and she said he'd know that. So she said because as a woman, a lot of her friends do IVF and need abortions and things like that. So she was like, all my friends need this stuff, so I'm not going to sit here and not give my people what they need. And so she said, I'm not going to support you if you do not come. So that's why she was there, and she talked about how she loved Madison Square Garden. But I also think she wanted her Beyonce moment too. Don't we all? So that was nice to see her. And then, I wrote that she wrote a book, and I think we should add that to the book club too. So of course we're gonna do Michelle book, Obama book, Melania book. I don't discriminate. I like to read both information on both sides. And the first book we're gonna start with is Condoleezza Rice, because that's one of my favorites. I just think she did partisanship really, really well. People, that's it. I think that's it. I tried to see if they had any. I asked AI at the end of it all if there was any policies that people of color should know about. It is the same stuff. They just talked about Kamala in terms of her criminal reform. They talked about Donald Trump in terms of his opportunity areas and zones that he wants to do for black people. What else did he talk about? Sorry. Kick me out. Okay, for black people. Yeah, so Kamala they talked about equity in education and that she advocates for funding schools in underserved communities. AI told me that Trump, what did he do? He signed a First Step Act, which is aimed towards reducing mandatory minimum sentences for non-violent offenders, which indirectly impacts communities of color. And for healthcare, Kamala emphasized expanding healthcare, particularly in communities of color. She supported initiatives that aim to reduce racial disparities. For healthcare for Trump, while Trump's administration made efforts towards health initiatives such as addressing opioid crises, critiques did remain for the overall healthcare experience faced by people of color. And you know that's due to COVID, because all the black folks dying. Okay, what about equity and education? Did I say that one already? Yeah, I did. Economic opportunity. So Kamala believes she is going to promote economic empowerment through access to capital for minority-owned business. And that's that $50K I was telling you earlier. That's what that is. Job training, programs, and equitable hiring practices. Economic growth for Trump. Trump is going to advocate for policies aimed at increasing economic growth, suggesting that these will benefit all communities, including people of color, through jobs creations and through economic development policies. So that's what he wants to do. And civil rights protection. Oh, that's something Kamala has that he doesn't have. So Kamala has voiced strong support for the Voting Rights Act and measures to protect voting access for marginalized community. That's the Gavin Newsom ID, which I do not support. And I think anything else Donald do? What Donald do? Let's see. I think I said the healthcare, criminal justice, opportunity zones. I gotta look into that one more. I don't know much about that one. You guys know about that? He's going to encourage investment in economically distressed communities, which may benefit people of color. So I got to look up in that one more. It says some pros and cons of Trump. I like this one. It says he's media savvy. Trump effectively uses media and social platforms to communicate directly with his supporters, while Harris could use more effective communication skills. She has challenges with public speaking. Critiques about her debate performance and overall communication style may affect voter perceptions of her. So we'll leave it there. I think those are all the basic pros and cons of Kamala and Trump this week. Thank you for joining me. Remember, it's 8 days until Election Day. Election is November 5th. I appreciate you guys for joining me on this live. I'll see you guys next week. We're here every week, Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Tuesdays with Nico. I'll see y'all next time. Remember, always maintain your what? Your MVP, your morals, your values, and your principles. Love y'all. Good night. Bye.